Betty Buzzins is a local beekeeper in Marketville with a pretty sizable place on the edge of town. The honey that her bees produce is some of the best in the area, and she can barely keep up with demand for it. And ever since she opened her apiary, local farmers and gardeners love the fact that Betty's bees help pollinate their crops and flowers. But with all of the increased bee activity, there has been a rise in the number of bee stings in the area. And for most people, a bee sting is a little bit of pain without a whole lot of long-term issues. However, for the residents of Marketville who are allergic to bee stings, this could have pretty serious consequences. But what does that mean for economics and markets? All of those pollinated plants and flowers, along with the additional bee stings, are what economists call externalities. An externality is the cost or benefit experienced by a third party who is not directly involved in the production or consumption of a good or service. Let's try to break that down a little bit. Betty Buzzins is the producer. She makes and sells honey. People who purchase her honey are the consumers. Betty and the consumers are both directly involved in the production and consumption of the honey. But our farmers and gardeners who love having the bees pollinate everything are not directly involved in the whole honey process. Neither are the individuals who are stung by the bees. Thus, both of these groups are third parties. So, the bee stings and pollination are a cost and benefit experienced by a third party in the production and consumption of honey. Externalities. And externalities that benefit third parties are positive, while those that cost third parties are called negative externalities. In the honey situation, which externality is positive and which is negative? That's right, the pollination is positive, while the bee stings are negative. Okay, let's check in. A factory that makes widgets that get exported is dumping toxic chemicals into a river to cut costs. This pollutes the town's drinking water. Explain how this pollution is a negative externality. Pause the video while you answer. The town is not directly involved in the production or consumption of the widgets. However, the pollution in the water supply is negatively impacting the residents of the town, making it a negative externality. But what causes externalities? Well, in some cases, they are the product of intentional decisions by producers and consumers. Remember, in a market economy, producers are driven by their desire to maximize profits. For some companies, this can happen by keeping costs under control. So maybe factory owners knowingly dump waste in ways that keep costs down but lead to increasing pollution. But other companies also make decisions that are designed to increase revenue, and this can lead to externalities too. For example, in the 1950s, some car manufacturers began adding seat belts to their cars and promoting the safety benefits as a selling point. Well, the increased presence of seat belts in cars led to decreases in the number of automobile-related deaths. So those safety benefits were a positive externality. Most externalities, however, are more likely to be unintended consequences of economic activity. Neither the producer nor the consumer planned for these results. For example, when Betty Buzzins started her business, she just wanted to make and sell the highest quality honey. She wasn't thinking about the local farmers or the potential for bee stings. Okay, let's take a second to answer a quick question. Several new businesses have opened up in downtown Marketville. What might be some of the unintended externalities that arise? Pause for a moment to answer the question. Well, there are any number of unintended consequences of this decision. Some include increased traffic as more people come out to shop. Other businesses in the area may see increased sales as more people visit downtown. But there may be more incidents of shoplifting, and for folks who live downtown, the additional people may increase the noise level and make it harder to move around. You're probably wondering why we even study externalities. Well, by looking at what consumers pay for goods and services, as well as the production costs, we can get an idea about the profitability of different goods and services. But that doesn't measure the total cost of economic activity. Externalities can significantly impact stakeholders in the market beyond just what is involved in producing and consuming goods and services. Let's think about Betty and those bees. Well, if someone is highly allergic to bee stings, the impact of them can be catastrophic. And while this example impacts some citizens, what about externalities that impact whole towns, regions, and states? Remember that widget factory we talked about that disposes of toxic chemicals in the town's water supply? The resulting pollution can cause significant health issues for town residents, make it harder to access clean, safe drinking water, and potentially even lead to death. And this pollution can even impact other communities further downstream, too. But there can also be other economic impacts. Those significant health issues can lead to increased healthcare costs for individual citizens, medical providers, and the town as a whole. Plus, any sort of environmental cleanup paid for by the government will lead to increased taxes or a reduction in other services. The good news, though, is that by studying externalities and their impact on markets, we can develop plans and policies that are designed to stop or at least minimize the negative impact of externalities. But we can also study externalities' impact on society to do a better job of planning for the future. In fact, this process also helps communities, states, and nations develop plans and policies to deal with externalities, like the ones we will discuss in the next lesson. Time for one last check-in. What are some potential impacts of the increased traffic that is a result of businesses opening in downtown Marketville? Take a second to answer that and meet me back here. Well, increased traffic can lead to increased accidents. These accidents can lead to increased insurance costs for drivers, as well as potential health issues for people involved in the crash. Okay, let's take a moment to recap. Externalities are costs or benefits that impact third parties who are not involved in the production or consumption of a good or service. These externalities can be positive or negative, and while some are the result of conscious choices by producers and consumers, most externalities are unintended consequences. We study these to try to get a better picture of what the full cost of economic activity is in a market and see how this activity impacts all stakeholders. Tomorrow, we're going to look at how stakeholders like businesses, non-government organizations, and the government itself try to prevent negative externalities or deal with their impact. But until then, remember to keep investing in yourself one lesson at a time. See you next time. Hey!